Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny Million is there. Follow at Johnny Million on Twitter, and of course at Philip Ittner, 1L2Ts on Twitter as well for as long as it happens, until anybody decides to start a Substack, of course, and then they'll be shut down. I'm sure you heard about Matt Taibbi's. He quit Twitter.
Yes,
yesterday. Oh, it's so good. It just guys, if you're dancing with snakes, one of them's gonna bite you. I don't get it. It's the weirdest thing. These guys they're like the equivalent of the tankies are like Baptist snake handlers. Those people are like, the Lord will protect me from the venom of this vile beast, and then snap. Oh, yeah, he's dead. That's how it works. Ask any of the oligarchs that are still alive and that are on the run before they magically trip and fall into a noose while shooting their family accidentally while hunting. There's so much. Okay, so before the break we were talking about the fact that Medvedev, who was like Putin light for a long time, they would swap positions, because you can't stay in the same position, right? That was the idea, is that he was a placeholder for the. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. He claimed that Ukrainians, quote, are forced to live in constant anxiety and fear. Gee, I wonder why. And he said that Ukraine would disappear. And because, this is the quote, why will Ukraine disappear? Because no one needs it. And my first question is, what exactly does Russia do?
Well, yeah, what do we need them for?
What's the gig? What?
Yeah, if nobody needs Ukraine, why are you so darn determined to try and seize it?
Right. Why wouldn't it just fade out?
Why
don't you wait till it dies of old age? Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. Why are you waging a disastrous war? And expending all this capital and young lives, not so young, but lives of your own soldiers, if it doesn't really matter. I mean, his whole argument. First off, we have to address the fact that Medvedev, it is widely known, has been hitting the bottle, or is widely speculated, not known. Widely speculated that Medvedev. Yeah, how odd. But moving on from that, he said a whole bunch of silly stuff with this. It was like it's going to be this massive drain on the European Union. Well, no, actually, there's a huge agribusiness industry here. Right. There's massive in IT. There's a massive military industrial complex. This is the breadbasket of Europe.
Right.
Why? It's going to be a massive boon to the EU.
Yeah, that seems like an absurd thing to assert. Yeah. Okay, one more thing.
Being an idiot.
Right. One more thing before we take our question.
Anybody take a Google and do Google for Medvedev dancing. You'll get a good laugh.
Oh, good. All right, cool. Let's see if I can put it up.
Man can't dance.
All right.
The man cannot dance.
Yeah, the same result if you Google Johnny Million dancing. The man can't dance.
Yeah, fair enough. But I'm not the former president of Russia.
Right. And by the way, if you Google how Sparks can't dance, 0 returns on Google. 0, because I absolutely can. And quite well. Johnny's seen it. Anyways, one more thing. Before we get into our questions, because I'm sure we have a few. Yes, Johnny Million?
Oh, yeah, we've got a few.
Yeah. Cool.
One right off the gate is B.P. says Phil's looking great. Getting some sun out there, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Spring? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as cold, I suppose.
I have a final point as well, but go ahead.
Okay.
I like to reply to all compliments with yeah, right.
Loud explosion heard in Sevastopol, Crimea. Is the one when the initial report was that it was in, and I know I'll muck up this particular name. What is it? Like Fjord, I don't know, whatever. Oh, Feodosia.
In Feodosia.
Yeah. Oh,
an explosion in Feodosia.
Yeah. So they previously reported those.
Feodosia is a weird little town. It's actually mostly comprised of Russian dachas, seaside resort town. But some of the officer corps I bet we'll have a Russian officer corps from the naval base at Sevastopol. Will probably have dachas there. So an explosion in Feodosia is kind of. I hadn't actually heard that one.
2 of them.
A lot's going on. Yeah. Well, like I said, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if there's an officer corps there,
right.
that may have had their house, or their family, who knows. Yeah,
right.
no. Again, another instance. I mean, there was an explosion earlier in the week in Melitopol, which appears to have been partisan activity. So on the other side of the battle lines, they blew up a bunch of reinforcements because Melitopol is being used as a transport hub. Yeah, more things going boom on the other side of the divide,
right.
on the other side of the battle line. So, and my quick thing before we get into questions is, in the last 48 hours, as we move into Ramadan, the Islamic holiday of Ramadan, and iftar, the evening meal, which you fast during Ramadan if you're a Muslim, has been celebrated by pretty much every major Ukrainian dignitary, from Zelensky to Zaluzhny to a whole bunch of other people, going and celebrating iftar and breaking their fast
right.
at the end of the evening. So you have a Jewish president in a mostly Christian country celebrating and instituting the recognition of Ramadan every year, which is an Islamic celebration,
right,
in a fascist country, which is shutting down religious freedoms and all. These two narratives do not meet. They don't. I mean, Zelensky is standing there saying we are going to celebrate Ramadan, and how does that gel with this idea that the place is filled with fascists?
Right.
So
it's very
interesting to me. I found that
when they attack pluralism in general all the time, the idea of acceptance of anybody different, it gets really. I think it makes the tankies' job harder, which I enjoy. That's all. I just know that.
Me too.
That they have a squirm in their future that gets added to the stack of squirms. That said, let's grab some questions, because and I could do this. We'll do this on Wednesday. We could do this all the time. I could do this all day. So,
all right. So I've got a question from Be Pragmatic that came in very early, asking, what's a school day like for Kiev children and teens? Do you know?
Well, I know generally. I can't speak to Kiev specifically, but I was out in Lviv about a month ago, and I did have this conversation with a school out there. And they said one of the problems that they were having was that in order to be safe, they have to split their classes up between remote education and actually in-person education. And it's not because they don't have capacity. It's not because they don't have teachers. It is because should there be a bomb or should there be an air raid siren, there's not enough room in the bomb shelter. So it's not capacity in the classroom that matters. It's capacity in the bomb, in the air raid shelter, which is just incredibly depressing.
Right.
That's how they live their lives. Having said that, a lot of work is being done on providing them with. I was out again. I encourage everybody to go take a look at my blog. It's probably from about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, where I was out in Lviv, and there was an international Ukrainian Children's Action Program with a colleague and a friend of mine, Erwin Redliner, delivering tablets so that these kids could do remote learning. So go take a look at that blog. It's very simple. I think I just called it The Kids. But they are adjusting. They have to. They have no choice. The other devastating thing, though, is that as you go further and further east towards the front line, where things are absolutely decimated, a lot of schools have been destroyed for a lot of different reasons. Some because the Russians just like to indiscriminately bomb stuff, but also because schools, hospitals, train stations, warehouses, anything big is where you're going to billet your soldiers.
Right.
And this is just the way it is in warfare. As much as I loathe the Russians, this isn't just them that do this. They become, in quotation marks, legitimate targets because you roll into a city. You're an armed force coming into the city. Either the Ukrainians recovering territory or the Russians, trying to push westward.
Mhm.
You're going to need a place where your soldiers can sleep, and you need
Right.
big buildings. And
Right.
sadly, schools are often the case. So a lot of schools have been destroyed. So it's a very depressing situation. But kids and people in Ukraine generally are desperate to try and keep normalcy. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. Also, just for the record, the UN held elections this week, and of the 14 commissions that exist, 14 commissions, councils, and expert groups that exist in the UN, Russia was only elected to 2. It normally holds seats on all of them, or at least 8, the big ones. And one of them was by assertion, meaning nobody wants to do this, so we'll do this one. So it wasn't really a vote. And I find it hilarious that like Estonia and other countries were the ones that blocked it. Armenia did it as well, which is amazing considering the circumstance. And then the Czech Republic blocked them on one of these. Russia is now on the Commission for Social Development, an intergovernmental working group of experts on international accounting and reporting, which is hilarious. The Commission for Social Development is like protecting minority rights and trying to do this in other countries, which is hilarious. It's almost like they only put the Russians there just to watch them grind their teeth. Like, okay, I suppose we should fight AIDS. Yeah, sure. Like that's literally just to aggravate them. And then they acclaimed that they would be on the Intergovernmental Working Group of Experts on International Accounting and Reporting Standards, which is not going to do anything. It's the same. And they're out of the SWIFT system, so they can't even see half the stuff. So it's hilarious. But I just wanted to point that out. And let's take a break, and when we come back, more questions for Philip Ittner. It's the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
The weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Fabulous! Yay! There you go. I had to, yeah. So, a bunch.
That's my Patron. That's my latest acquisition. That's my Patron pillow. For those of you who are listening on the radio, I have an adorable Patron, the palm-stemming dog pillow.
Yes, indeed you do. So, a couple things. The primary one being, and I think I figured out what the issue is with not here in Chicago. I can solve it while you're asking questions. Is I have a lot to talk about, and we might do a little bit of like a couple questions after the show ends on the live stream. If you feel like bumping over there, but at the very least, Johnny Million, what's our next question that's in there?
From Nick Rich, does Phil have any plans of returning to places like Odessa for updates?
Yeah, I do. It may not be. It might be not may not be Odessa. It might be east. I'm thinking maybe Kharkiv. But yeah, I will. I'd love to get. I'm always happy to go to Odessa. It's a wonderful city. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do. I have plans for updates and
awesome.
And getting around the country a little bit more.
Got a question from Elizabeth. They're curious about the UN Security Council President's response about it's Russia this month.
Yes, and we were talking about that in the gap. Since April 1st, terrible April Fool's joke. Russia's representative to the UN is now chair of the UN Security Council. It is very controversial. The Ukrainians are furious about it, of course, as they would be, but a lot of people are very angry about it. This is maybe not the best time for them to be heading the UNSC, and it's my personal opinion, my humble opinion. I don't know what we could do about it, but it's not. It doesn't shine a good light on the United Nations. I'll tell you that. I mean, during the middle of, if we had an international body during the Second World War, we would let the Nazis take a turn.
No, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Having it, I mean, it's not good.
Yeah, especially like the last time they did it was in February, right, of last year, because they rotate.
There's a rotation. Yeah, it's a
so
rotation, and then you have the temporary members and all the rest of it. They cycle through it. So that's why I say I don't know what you could do to stop it, but also at the same time, this is an aggressor state, which is actually contradicting the entire foundational beliefs and rules and purpose for the United Nations is to avoid war, and these guys have started a war of aggression in Ukraine. So, I know it's controversial, but my personal opinion is something should have been done too, and it would have driven Moscow insane, of course. But tough. You're an aggressor state.
Cares, right? Exactly. At a certain point, like who are we worried about offending? It's excellent point. Let's get another one, Johnny Million. Let's do it as rapid fire as we can to get him in there.
See, what does Philip think of Finland joining NATO?
I think it's fantastic. I did not know this, but Finland's military, I mean, I kind of knew this, but I didn't know it until now. Finland's military is no joke. They have been spending a lot of money on their military, and it is an incredibly...
You know what? Let me parlay that into the next question from EZE Network. Will Finland now send troops or weapons to the Ukraine to reinforce their border against Russia?
Yeah, they already have. They've already been sending stuff. They're going to send more stuff. I don't know if them joining NATO will be the determinant factor in that. I would be surprised if it is. But you're right, Johnny. This is kind of all tied into one thing, because to pick up where I was before that secondary question, Finland's military is incredibly powerful for a single nation state.
Yeah.
Probably because they have a history of fighting with Russia, and as they weren't part of NATO, they had to build up their own military for a potential incursion by Russia. So they have been taking their military capacity very seriously. They're going to just slot right into NATO, no problem whatsoever. So, and also the other quick thing about that before we go to another question is, if genuinely the issue was NATO expansion, then why do we not hear the Kremlin scream? Why do we not hear the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia going absolutely ballistic about a stretch of border that directly connects with Russia? It in effect doubles NATO's connection, direct connection to Russia. Why was it Ukraine was such a threat, but Finland, a very powerful country militarily and with an enormous border and with a very contentious history with Russia, that was fine.
Right.
It just pays they don't care about that when it comes to Ukraine. What they care about is subduing their colonial territories that they've had, and their
also for the record, like the border of Finland and Russia is I think 3 times the size of the border of Ukraine with Russia. So if your concern is NATO stuff on our border, then why didn't you go after Finland a long time ago? Well, I'll tell you, because Finland would have kicked your butt. That's why.
Yeah, that's how
it's exactly why.
They just went after what they thought the weak win would be.
Exactly. So let's see. Yeah, we got time. Keep rolling them, Johnny Man. Let's try to get through them.
Yeah. So I've got another one from Elizabeth. Has Philip seen the Russian Federation presentation blocked by the U.S. and the U.K.? It was something about a kidnapping mastermind. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, if I'm messing this up.
Kidnapping mastermind. Oh, read that to me again one more time, Johnny, because I'm not quite getting it.
Seen the Russian Federation presentation blocked by the U.S. and the U.K.
The presentation, is this about the kidnapping of children and the taking of children? Sorry,
Elizabeth.
There's been a lot. There's the UK blocked by the U.S. and the UK their presentation. I don't know what that's in reference to. I mean,
there's a lot of things like that going on at any given time.
There's a lot of things like that. Yeah, I need to know more specifics about what exact presentation it was that was stopped, because the Russians argue all the time that that they are not able to get their propaganda out. I think that that's not true, because actually they're very good at getting their messaging out. But a presentation, if it's regards to the children thing, I know that they put together some sort of statement and stuff that hasn't been really disseminated in the West about how, oh no, we're not kidnapping children, we're saving them from the war zone. We're being really good people. By this war that we started, all these orphans we've created, we're then now taking them and spiriting them away to Chechnya and provinces out in the middle of nowhere. But they tilt the prism of the narrative. It's the same story. A kid is taken from Ukraine and is sent to Russia. The Russians say they're rescuing him from a war zone. The Ukrainians say you're still stealing our children. So I think there was a report that they put out in that regard. This might even be actually the report I was talking about, the UNSC, because this is the woman in charge of children's affairs. She presented at the UNSC and they walked out, as I mentioned earlier. I don't know if that's what Elizabeth is referring to. If she wants to get back in touch and specifically say which report it is that is not being put out into the West, in the US and UK, I'd be happy to respond to it.
Let's and real quick, somebody was asking me why I referenced earlier, don't buy from Temu. That's because it's just the new sort of front for Alibaba in the United States. It's directly funding the CCP. It's one of their ways to get rid of a lot of stacked up inventory in China and move it into the Western market.
That's
and so they're doing this huge
ridiculously cheaper than Amazon.
Yes, and there's ads everywhere, and they take advantage of the postal service. They're trying to do the same thing to American consumers that they do to African consumers and Middle Eastern consumers, which is undercut local stores entirely to get people hooked on them as a source again. And if you avoid it long enough, if you could just not buy from it for give it a year. Stick to everything else give it a year, you'll see that it will go away because it's just a front. That's why somebody asked during that break. Now, that said, we'll end on the decline of Sergei Horseface Lavrov, which is an article that I saw. But I want to grab another question from Johnny. So go ahead.
Well, here's a quick comment into a question. Connie Kelly is very happy to see her girl Olga back behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin has a question. What does Phil know about the Russian fighter pilots that defected with their jets?
Oh, yeah, those guys.
My God, that was has it happened again, or are we talking about almost at the beginning of the war? Because I know that happened at the beginning of the war. I haven't heard any reports of it happening recently. But yeah, there was a whole thing about them getting out at the beginning of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically just defections, because they didn't want to. There's also because Ukraine's air defenses are very strong. But you're hitting me with another. I mean, I need to know a little bit more details with these questions before I can answer them properly, because I haven't heard anything like that happening recently. Right. I don't think it would have happened, and I wouldn't have.
That came up again. That came up again in one of the other stories about the one of the guys in Putin's circle that just defected. And
now that's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. And right. So he's the guy who's been talking crap about Putin and telling everybody, his current physical and mental state. That guy, I think, and so that story might be related to that. He's amongst the people who also defected were these guys with their planes. You might have seen that again as a reference, possibly. That's where I'm going with it. I'm blitzing on that guy's name right now, but he basically has been mainly what he's been giving is tea. He's been talking about Putin's mental state and how he couldn't work for the guy anymore because he's just a murderous lunatic at this point. But at the same time, wasn't really that he's losing it, but not losing it in a way that people are like, he's going to reach for the button, but just that he's losing it like he might start, making out with a painting, that kind of stuff, or. Okay,
so this might be connected. I'm just taking a quick look. this may be connected to a series of reports that actually we've been hearing, not just about planes, but also about other hardware. That so Ukraine has had a program of promoting defections. They've got a whole hotline system that you can call and say,
Sorry,
I want to defect.
If you want to hear the rest of that, you can hang
time.
around. Yeah, we ran out of time. If you want to hear more of that, stick around on the live stream. But thank you, Chicago. Thanks, everybody there. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And next week, we're going to talk about the Jan Sixer from Chicago who just got time added to his sentence. Yeah, he got more time because of Tucker Carlson and the videos that were released. Like I said would happen. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
I fixed it so I can hear Chicago and the thing.
Did you hear the very end?
I did.
Take care, guys.
All right, thanks, Chicago. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, so you were saying about these multiple folks because we got squunched on time.
No, I'll just write. Yeah, they've got Ukraine's got a whole program of, it's called I Want to Live, and it's a hotline that Russian soldiers can call.
Right.
And say, I want to defect. And they've recently been pushing to say, don't just you defect, bring some of your stuff over with you. It's my understanding it's mostly been, tanks and stuff, artillery tanks, things like that.
Right.
But if they're able to convince a Russian pilot to come over with a couple of fighters, yeah. So.
Yeah, the guy I was talking about is a guy named Gleb Karakulov.
No question? So we go for a few more?
Yeah, there was a guy named Gleb Karakulov. He snuck out through Kazakhstan, went to Turkey with his wife and daughter, switched off his phone, shut out.
Oh yeah, that story with his wife and daughter. That's a great story. Yeah, that's a movie.
He was an officer in Putin's elite personal security service, one of his body men. He was one of the few that have fled that have rank besides.
And he had to say to the rest of the Presidential Protection Agency, he had to say, I've got an upset stomach. I'm gonna stay in a little while, in the hotel. And then he said, "Oh, I'm feeling better, but John, I'm not on duty right now, so I'm going to go to the market and pick up." But this was all just delaying tactics for him to kind of. So that the other guys in the Presidential Protection Service didn't twig to the idea that something was up. And while all that was going on, he went to the airport with his kid and his wife, and he was sitting in the terminal sweating bullets. And he was getting these continual calls on his cell phone, and he basically just turned off the phone, boarded the plane, and got out of there. So, I mean, just by the very skin of his, chin. And it's a great story. It's a great story. And he's also a great source of information about what's happening internally within the Kremlin and within Putin's administration. And what he is saying is that Putin is almost like pathologically paranoid. Mm-hmm. He's completely, he won't meet with anybody. He's terrified somebody's going to kill him or poison him or infect him with a disease.
I don't think that sounds that crazy. I think that sounds like a reasonable fear to have.
It's also a thing about these, and this is a buddy of mine who is a Russian journalist told me this years ago. He said one of the problems during COVID was that normally the Presidential Protection Service has to be the one that authorizes who can actually, physically meet with the president of the Russian Federation. So they're actually able to vet who he's talking to. They at least know who he's having interactions with. But since he's become so terribly paranoid after COVID and now during this entire conflict, they're like, we don't know who he's talking to. And he is getting some information from people that we just do not know. And he's unhinged.
And that's what
this guy who defected is saying. And also the guy,
he's been talking to a friend of his online called Dark Brandon, who is like Joe Biden using a ChatGPT voice and translator, has been like messing with his mind the whole time. Just like it's been a Joe Biden psyop. By the way, this guy Karakulov said our president has become
with Alex Jones' voice.
That's right. Yeah, he's been using Alex Jones' voice. Mr. Putin, I'm so glad to meet you. Whatever. I'm glad you're not a crisis actor.
Vladimir, you gotta get out of there. You gotta get out of there. You gotta get out of there.
You gotta run for it. They're gonna kill you. Our president has become a war criminal, this guy said. It's time to end this war and stop being silent. He was responsible for secure communications and so moral opposition to Russia's war and invasion of Ukraine, and his fear of dying was what drove him to speak out. Also, insofar as the State Department and others can tell, everything he said matches up with the other stuff that they've heard. So it's not like, you always have to, because there's always a chance that fake defectors, that became a big thing in the mid 80s, was fake defectors. They would send you, people because they would take advantage of, your goodness. Meanwhile, we'd have U.S. Tried that once. That person died. Magically. They just had an accident. Oh, they were so happy living in Russia.
They say that they have They say that they have vetted him and that that his story holds up. And they've checked his bona fides and his ID and all the rest of it. Yeah, the other thing that he said was, we are committing genocide in Ukraine and I can no longer participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the thing that drove him there. Okay, so we have a couple more questions and we'll let everybody go. I just wanted to make sure we got the plurality.
So I've got a question from Human F Being. When will Putin admit that he loses the war? Will he ever admit defeat?
Putin being Putin, I don't know if he ever will. They will desperately try, as they have been doing for quite some time, to try and push the responsibility off on somebody. They'll scapegoat somebody, which is why I think we're seeing the conflict between Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, and the Russian Ministry of Defense, and the fighting on that level beneath the president, so that he can blame whoever loses that conflict. And again, we've talked about this many times. This is a tried and tested Russian technique where they let the guys beneath the president or the head of state, the czar, the premier, fight, and whoever is the victor gets to stay, and whoever is the loser is the one that gets blamed for we're off the air now, right?
Yes.
For the shit show that has actually happened in the war. So. But Putin himself, knowing Putin, he'll do everything he possibly can to avoid taking responsibility for this. Because the second he has to take responsibility, he will fall from a very high altitude, and he will not survive it. Yeah. So I think it's more likely that he ends up, in exile or dead. Or in prison. So,
right. I feel like he's going to try exile first, and then he might toy with the idea of prison's better than dead, and then just go with dead. These are in his decision tree.
If it's up to him, up to him, his ego won't allow him to admit that he is responsible for this.
Right.
All right. Let's squeeze one more in here from Stargal46. How is Bakhmut managing, and are they still being bombed by Russia?
Still holding out, amazingly. Bakhmut has become this, this thing that both sides are just desperate to win. Now it's not even about the territory, although I argue it never was. But now it has become this thing of like, well, this is the linchpin fight. For now, I think the counteroffensive will not include Bakhmut. I think the counteroffensive will be elsewhere. But currently, right now, despite Prigozhin himself going on a rooftop, what was it, about 5 days ago, and declaring victory, nope, Ukrainians are still there. They're still fighting. It's the tenacity of the Ukrainians to hold Bakhmut has been incredible, and they are continuing to hold it, and the Russians continue to throw themselves at it and die there. And if that's the way they want to have it, then the Ukrainians are happy to accommodate. But right now, as of this very moment, the last I knew, and I checked earlier in the day, Bakhmut was still in at least contested hands. So.
Yeah. So I'm,
Amazingly.
we'll be watching this as it comes out, and obviously the spring offensive could happen at any time. Weather seems to be going in that direction there, which makes it more and more likely. And again, the idea
We
that
had a
this,
rain, so we had a spring.
yeah,
Yeah, we had a series of spring rainstorms over the last couple of days, so that doesn't help. But I think if I were a betting man, I would say the chances are that the very last tail end of April, the beginning of May is a very good
right,
chance. Um, everything is variable because the wars are tricky things. So it could be pushed back, but it's coming. They're getting ready, man.
that's right.
They
Yeah.
got all the kit now, and they are ready to go. It's just a matter of where it's going to happen. So
Yeah. So, by the way, this week, Fu Zong, which is the ambassador to the EU from China, said that the comments about China's relationship with Russia being a no limits relationship, he said that was, quote, nothing but rhetoric. That's the Chinese ambassador to the EU. And that was, by the way, on part of them inviting France. Macron went to China and blah blah blah. And this, Chinois is a long history of Chinese and French, cultural and fashion crossover and that kind of stuff. It's been around for a long time. But Macron's not a dunce, and he knows how to work idiots. That's why he shook Trump's hand so hard and all that shit. So no limit is nothing but rhetoric, he said. And this was quoted and they asked him if just to make sure he meant it, Right. And he was like, nope, that's what it means. Yep. Yeah. I know people are focused on the presidential call. The fact that President Xi is not speaking to Zelensky does not signify that China is on the side of the Russia on the Ukrainian issue. That is just rhetoric. Like the no limits thing is just rhetoric. It's just, dude, with friends like these, luckily I have you guys, true, genuine human beings. I'm glad to know, ladies and gentlemen. Give a big in the chat room. Big thank you to Philip and Johnny for joining us today, and I thank you as well. So applause or emojis, something inappropriate, probably, I don't know, eggplants and water spouts, I don't know, something like that. Yes. But wow. Thanks guys for being with us, and I will see you guys next week. And Phil, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Everyone.
And I'll see you on Wednesday, Hal. Always a pleasure, Johnny. Take care.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Take care, all.
All right, bye.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks. Okay. Cheers, everybody. Thank you, guys. Thank you, chat room. You guys are amazing. Appreciate it. I always feel like when we're going through the questions that on the one end, we are, we're in a, like, I'm glad we're fielding the questions that you guys have, and on the other end, I always feel like I don't get a chance to talk to you enough during that thing. So, I would like to say, if I may, where is it? Hold on. Let me open my, chat. There you go. So I can at least 3, 2, 1. There we go. Excellent. There you are. Yeah, you guys, love you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks very much. I'm about to go I'm going to go have coffee with Zach Throne right now. Some of you may know him as the star of The Heights. The show The Heights, remember that? Where they had a hit single. Remember that 90s show? Yeah, that guy? Yeah, he's a good dude. His dad was also Kirk's boss on Star Trek. I don't know if you knew that. Pretty cool. Yes, Malcolm Nance has a Substack. That's one of the other reasons why Elon Musk wants to shut it down. And sorry, Matt, you were just collateral damage, dum-dum. Sorry about that. Anyways, Kelly, yes, we miss Kelly. I'll get to see her in the next couple weeks, I hope, when I'm back in LA a bunch. Oh, by the way, Tuesday, Ultimate Jam Night. It's the Nam Fam night, and boy, do I have a lot on my plate. Yeah, it's going to be a big one for me. I'm working hard. It's all high notes. So, again, you're welcome. But until then, I will see you guys on Monday, for the morning show and the afternoon show, and then I'll probably drive to LA after that, and then I'll be in LA for that, and then I'll probably do the morning show from LA this time on Wednesday, and maybe the afternoon show, and then come back. We'll see. It's a lot, and it's, my schedule is very crazy. Yes, probably no show on Tuesday, although I've been toying with the idea that when I drive in, I could do an earlier show, like in the morning. The question is about wearing my voice out, too. Like, usually a show falls during sound check, so that's why I don't do it. But there's also it's kind of smart, Aw, thanks, Eli, I try. But, it's easy. Stoic optimism, folks. And remember, one more thing.